What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 498. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, you ready to cover some M20?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, the fact that M20 and Modern Horizons came out at essentially the same time, from my point of view, is a little rough, but I'm actually really excited to cover M20. I think that this set just looks really sweet, and it's kind of, even from just looking at the spoiler, it's kind of blown out of the water my expectations when it comes to core set. Like, I think this core set's going to be awesome.
Yeah, traditionally we think of these as a bit of a palate cleanser, and it might even be, considering the sets that we're coming off of. But still, it's got a lot going on, and we're going to be jumping into every single common and uncommon in the set on this one. This is, of course, the big set review. Before we get into it, though, got to mention our sponsor, channelfireball.com. That's the place to go for all things Magic related on the internet. Hey, if you want to get M20 right now, you can go pre-order it on Channel Fireball. And once they're able to ship it to you, it'll be in the mail and you'll get it in your hands, and you can draft it with your friends or do whatever. While you're there, you can pick up awesome stuff like you can get singles and sealed product like M20 or whatever else it is that you need. You also can get supplies, and you can get content by some of the best content creators on the internet for Magic right there on the front page for free on channelfireball.com. We do thank them for their sponsorship. Also, newsletters. Luis, there's 3 now?
Yeah, we've got 3 newsletters. So speaking of content, you get to opt into the content you want, and this content can't be found anywhere but the newsletter. We've got myself. I write a newsletter every Wednesday. We've got Matt Nass. He's writing the Modern newsletter. We just kicked that off, and every week Matt's going to find a pretty sweet Modern brew or invent one, and he'll tell you all about that. And then on Friday, we've got the Commander newsletter by the one and only Eric Levine. So I've been really happy with how the newsletters have come out. I think it's kind of cool getting this like bite-sized bit of content. I look forward to the newsletters I'm signed up for, and I'd urge you to go to channelfireball.com/newsletter, and you sign up for any and all of the newsletters. Though I would, of course, recommend all of them. Don't tell Matt his newsletter is good. He doesn't need that.
Lots of good info, even some extra promos and stuff in those newsletters. So do check those out. If you want to support the show directly, if you found this show useful, if it's made your life a little better, if you like hanging out with us once every week and want to make sure that we keep doing it, patreon.com/limited resources. You can get some cool bonuses there as well that are exclusive to patrons. And a lot of it is just access to the feed where we ask questions or allow you to ask us questions directly.
I've really been thinking about donating to the Patreon so I could get access to it, since
yeah, you have to. Yeah, I hope that many of our listeners have also been thinking about doing the same thing. So patreon.com/.
Jokes aside, I think Patreon is awesome because it really does help you support the content you like to see. You don't have to. We're overjoyed if you just want to listen to the podcast. You are definitely supporting us by doing that. Patreon can really help you support any of the content creators, us or other people that are doing the stuff that you think is awesome and you want to see more of.
That's exactly it. Okay, so first things first, Luis, before we get into the cards, we're going to be starting with the gold uncommons. These are our signpost uncommons. They help us get an idea for what each color pair is doing, but we need some context here. Give us the grading scale overview.
All right, so we're going to go with letter grades. We're going to start at A's. These are bombs, game winners, cards that are good in many situations, especially when behind, and just the best cards in the set. Cards like Nissa, Ugin, God Eternal, Oketra, etc. Next up, we've got Bs. These are cards that actively pull you towards their colors, headliners for a set, and reasons to be in a particular color pair when you're talking about something like M20. So these are cards like Mau, Loyal Companion, Leyline Prowler, Ugin's Conjurant, Flux Channeler, just solid good cards. C's are playable. These are the pawns of limited. These are the cards you have to fill out your deck with. And they're cards that you're not unhappy to be playing. You're just not overjoyed to be playing. So these are cards like Tamiyo's Epiphany, Enforcer Griffin, even Eternal. D's are sometimes playable, but you'd prefer not to run them. Every time you put a D in your deck, you kind of wince a little bit. So these are cards like Charity Extractor, Ironclad Crovod, Wardscale Crocodile. Fs are, as you'd expect, virtually unplayable in all scenarios. Cards like Demolish, Arboreal Grazer, just the bottom of the barrel. We also have 2 subcategories. We've got Sideboard. These are cards that don't ever make or rarely make the main deck, but it can be quite powerful out of the sideboard and deserve a higher grade as a result. Cards like Forced Landing, Return to Nature, Topple the Statue. These are cards that when you put them in your deck, they're good, but you just don't start them. And then lastly, we've got Build-Arounds. These are cards that by themselves don't actually do much or aren't good enough, but if properly supported, they can be great. Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner, Saheeli, Sublime Artificer, even Karn, the Great Creator. These are examples of cards that on their face don't do as much, but with the right support, can be quite strong cards.
Let's get started on green. It is first card is Barkhide Troll. This is and by the way, I should mention we're going to do the colorless cards with this as well. Barkhide Troll is green for a 2/2 troll at uncommon. When it enters, it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Dang, so a 3/3 already.
Oh yeah,
and then you can pay 1 to remove a counter from it to gain hexproof until end of turn. That is super good.
Yeah, Barkhide Troll is great. I mean, green for a 3/3 would already be probably in the B- range, and then the fact that it gets to dodge one removal spell, though it shrinks from then on, is pretty strong. I would give Barkhide Troll a B. Just a
Me too.
Real solid card.
Yeah, all bark, all bite. Barkhide Troll. Next is Brightwood Tracker. It's 3 and a green for a 2/4 Elf Scout at common. It has an activated ability, so it's 4 mana 2/4. And then the activated ability is 5 and a green and tap it. To look at the top 4 cards of your library, you can reveal a creature card from among them and put it into your hand and put the rest in the bottom in a random order.
I like having one of these in a lot of my green decks, I think. I think that's what I want to
this seems like for the ramp decks, when they run out of action.
It's just, it's a 4 mana 2/4, which is slightly below curve, but not by much. And then if you ever end up in a spot where you have nothing good to do, you can pay 6 mana and get to impulse for a creature. Like looking at 4 cards is pretty good. Like you get some coverage there. So I think that Brightwood Tracker is a C. I wouldn't want multiples. They don't really stack well, but having the first one, I think most green decks are going to want that.
Yeah, I like Brightwood Tracker at C as well. Just it fits the game plan of having a lot of mana, making the game go kind of long, and then overwhelming them in the late game. It all works. The 2/4 does that. It's green, etc. Next is Centaur Courser, 2 and a green for a 3/3 Centaur Warrior at common. Good card. These cards tend to perform well in core set.
Yeah.
They're not super high, but this is an ideal 3-drop for a lot of these green decks.
Yeah, I would say that Centaur Courser ends up being a C+, just slightly better than average.
Yep. Agreed. Next is Feral Invocation, 2 and a green for an aura. It's common. It has flash. It enchants a creature, and the creature gets +2/+2. So the paradigm here to look through, right, is this is like a combat trick. It's a little more expensive at 3 than you would pay for +2/+2, which would normally only cost you 1 mana, but you get to keep it. It stays on.
Right. When your 3-drop attacks into their 3-drop and they just decide to trade and you go Feral Invocation, you end up with the equivalent of like a 4 or 5-drop in play. Mm-hmm. And you're already traded for a card. So Feral Invocation is good. I think it's better than most combat tricks because of the upside potential. And that makes me want to call it a C. I'm still not over the moon about it, but it's good.
Yeah, agreed. C for Feral Invocation. Next is probably the most popular card I've seen out of the set thus far based on Twitter. It's Ferocious Pup. It's 2 and a green for a 0/1 wolf at common. And when it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2 green wolf creature token. Mama follows close behind.
If you're playing this straight up, it's not very good. 2 and a green for a 2/2 plus a 0/1 is just nothing exciting. Where it gets exciting or interesting is when you have stuff like the Black Green Champion, Moldervine Reclamation, or any go wide or tokens based things, because at that point you end up getting a lot of value out of your 3 mana cards. So I think Ferocious Pup is like a C-, but in the right deck is a C+.
Yep, agreed. It flops depending on if you can use the 0/1 pup. And I know it's sad to sacrifice the pup, but you do what you got to do to win. It's Gift of Paradise is next. It's 2 and a green for an enchantment that enchants a land. It's an aura. It's common, and when it enters a battlefield, you gain 3 life. The enchanted land has tap, add 2 mana of any one color. So this is ramp with a little bit of life gain in there too.
It's ramp plus color fixing plus life gain. Basically, you want Gift of Paradise if your deck is like a 3-color deck or focused on 5 and 6 mana spells. Largely don't want it otherwise, but I like Gift of Paradise. I think it's probably a C, but the decks that want it, it's closer to a C+.
Yeah, I agree. C plus for Gift of Paradise in the
look,
ramp decks that can actually pay it.
Sometimes you're the green deck that wants Feral Invocation, and sometimes you're the green deck that wants Gift of Paradise, and rarely do those overlap. Mm-hmm. So it's good to know where you stand.
Yes. Next is Greenwood Sentinel, 1 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Scout. A common, it's got Vigilance.
Yeah, this is. I know where I stand on this card. I think Greenwood Sentinel is basically an F. Like, it's a D, but I just don't think almost any green deck wants this. It's just a card filler, nothing more.
It is purely if you need a 2-drop. So we're going to give it a D, but I agree. It is a D.
I just
it is
never
really
played
an
this
F.
card. Like,
no, there's too many playables in sets now to play a card like this. Next is Growth Cycle. It's 1 and a green for an instant at common. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. It gets an additional +2/+2 until end of turn for each card named Growth Cycle in your graveyard. This is funny, man. Look, the baseline's fine. It's giant growth that costs 2. Okay, I can do that. But this is just not the type of thing that I want to scale up with, like how many are in my yard or whatever. Like, oh, my combat trick is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It just feels kind of weird.
Also, like, this doesn't scale all that well. Giving a creature +5/+5 or +7/+7 are frequently the same thing. Like,
exactly. It's like, oh, I won combat.
Yeah.
So it's funny.
I think it's a D.
So what about at the baseline? It's just mediocre.
It's a mediocre combat trick. I think it's a D. Like, if you want them, sure.
There you go. Next is Healer of the Glade. This is green for a 1/2 elemental. It's common, and when it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life.
So basically, I don't want to play this card unless I'm sideboarding against a super aggressive red deck that has a lot of 2/1s, or I'm in the elemental deck and I just need every elemental I can get my hands on. So
exactly.
That's like a sideboard D. Yeah. It's just not that good.
No, and it feels out of place with the life gain because it seems to be black-white that really has that going on. Next is Howling Giant. It is 5 green for a 5/5 giant druid at uncommon. It's got reach, and when it enters a battlefield, you create 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens. What in the actual is going on here?
So it's a 7 mana for a 5/5 plus 2 2/2s, and because it's a giant. Giants have reach these days, I guess. I like this card. It's a good finisher.
This is awesome.
I mean, 7 mana for 9/9 worth of stats, plus 5/5 of it has reach, and it's split up over 3 creatures. This is the kind of card you ramp into. It's a
yes,
Glade Titan. I think that.
Ooh, Glade Titan. I like that.
Yeah. So,
but seriously, what you just said though is you really hit the nail on the head. This is the type of card that you want to ramp into because under almost all circumstances and limited, it is virtually impossible for your opponent to kill you through combat the turn after you put a Howling Giant on the battlefield.
Yeah.
5 of it has reach, and you have 3 creatures. They just can't attack you anymore.
Yeah. So
I love it.
I guess I would give Howling Giant a B-.
Me too. It's 7 mana, so you do need to ramp into it, but it stabilizes your board and takes over. That is 9 power and 9 toughness. Wow. Howling Giant, I love you, buddy. So B- for Howling Giant. And next we have Leafkin Druid, 1 and a green for an 0/3 elemental druid at common. It taps to add green, but if you control 4 or more creatures, it adds green instead. And there's some cool stuff going on. The Ferocious Pup is 2 creatures, so you're almost there. Howling Giant, you can see that's a great payoff.
Right, yeah.
If
you play Howling Giant, you'll have 4 creatures in play, and then this taps for 2 green.
No, that was not where we were going. But there seems to be a lot of good ways to use your mana in this set for a little ramp creature like this.
I think this card would be good in the set, even at like a very base level, where it's a 1 mana or 2 mana 0/3 that taps for a green, but it's an elemental, so it works with cards that care about elementals. And sometimes it just adds double green, which, even later in the game, that definitely matters. Like, you have cards like Brightwood Tracker, right? The 6 mana tap to look for creatures.
Oh, yeah.
If you have 1 or 2 of these out, all of a sudden you can just go off. So I think Leafkin Druid's really good. I think it's a B-. I think a lot of green decks are going to want this card.
Okay, I like it. It's not often that a common gets up to that range, but this one seems super good. Leafkin Druid gets a B-. Next is Lomine Shaman. This is 2 and a green for a 3/2 Centaur Shaman at uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, target player shuffles any number of target cards from their graveyard into their library. Bleh.
Yeah, I mean, this card is a 3 mana 3/2 with not a whole lot of extra text. If you're going really deep and need this to stop yourself from decking, that could be kind of cool. But yes, for the most part, I think this is just a D.
D for Loaming Shaman. Next is Mammoth Spider. Shields up, 4 and a green for a 3/5 Spider at common. It's got reach. It's fine 5-drop. These type of cards tend to pull their own and are certainly playable. I have Mammoth Spider at a rock solid C.
Yeah, I think Mammoth Spider might be a C+. There's just a lot of flyers in this format. I think that the green decks are going to be really happy having a Mammoth Spider.
Yeah. So C+ on Mammoth Spider. I've always really liked this card. I just think it's just the right combination of power, toughness, and stats. Next is Might of the Masses. Green for an instant at uncommon. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. Again, the Ferocious Pup. You know, the tokens and stuff like that starts to really add up to make Might of the Masses a really powerful card, at least in the realm of combat tricks. Perhaps not, you know, it's not a bomb or whatever, but this thing can be, you know, +4/+4, +5/+5, something like that. That said, still just a combat trick. It's just, you know, it's kind of like the other one we talked about, the growth cycle. It's like, well, if it was +20/+20, it might not matter, right? I don't know.
Yeah, Might of the Masses, it works a little better than that because when this card is +7/+7, you're probably getting a creature through, right? You're just attacking them for a bunch of, with a bunch of different really little dorks, and the one they don't block, you're just like, bam, take 10. But I never understood why this card got moved up to uncommon, which it has the last couple times we've seen it. It still just seems like a C- to me.
Me too. C- for Might of the Masses. I don't really get it. I mean, it's obviously a token payoff. Works well with trample. Next is called Natural End. It's 2 and a green for an instant at common. It says destroy target artifact or enchantment. You gain 3 life. You know where we're going with this, dear listener. This is a sideboard card, but you can bring it in. There's some decent targets we've seen already. Next is Netcaster Spider. 2 and a green for a 2/3 Spider at common. It's got reach, and whenever it blocks a creature with flying, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This little guy pulls his weight too. I like this Spider. Yeah.
I think that a kind of like integrated coverage flying plan where you just have like turn 3 Netcaster, turn 5 Mammoth. That's exactly where I want to be against the Flyers.
Yeah, and you're not being punished too badly. Like these cards are okay in other matchups too. It's not like they're specifically only good against flying, and otherwise you'd never want to see them. Sure, they're not optimal, right? Like in a normal matchup, you'd rather have a Centaur Courser than a Netcaster Spider. But on average, you'd probably rather have a Netcaster Spider, if this blue-white deck ends up being really good. So I like it. I like it at C, though. I'm still not like super stoked. Yeah.
Like Mammoth Spider shuts down 3 flyers. Netcaster Spider trades for 1, and then the other 2 start getting in.
Exactly. Next is Overcome. 3 green for a sorcery at uncommon. Creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain trample until end of turn. So this is a riff on the old school card Overrun, though this one tends to play out worse in a pretty significant way. That being said, we've seen a decent number of token makers and token things even at the common level, and Overcome could just end the game. I remember, when was the last time we saw it? It was Hour of Devastation, and it was unplayable or really not well
It was
received.
An Hour of Devastation, and in that format potentially didn't lend itself well to it, but it was just not very good.
No, but this seems like it might, right? Like this does win you the game in many scenarios if you can go really wide.
Yeah, it is a reward for going wide. I think Overcome is not good. It's not Overrun, right? +2/+2 and +3/+3 are just drastically different.
Yeah.
In the right deck, though, I can see this being something like a C+. It could be a B in the right deck.
It's definitely, has really high potential in the right deck. Because one of the things to remember, too, is it does give trample. So it's not just about tokens. Even your 3/3s and 4/4s gain significantly from this and make it really difficult for your opponent to block. So it's just any creatures, big or small. You just want basically as many of them as you can get to make Overcome great. But I agree. I think it can be a BB+ in the right deck. I don't want to sleep on it just because it was bad in Hour, but I'm also a little skeptical because it looked pretty good for that format and just ended up being bad.
It was unplayable in that format.
Can we call it a build around? Like you wouldn't just throw this into any random green deck, I don't think.
No, I think you probably would play it in most green decks. It just wouldn't be. It's like a C+ in most decks, where if you just have 4 creatures in play, it's pretty good. And in the like go wide deck, it's probably like a B.
Yeah. All right. So C+ on average. Overgrowth Elemental is next. It is 2 and a green for an elemental at uncommon. It's a 3/2 that when it enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on another target elemental you control. And whenever another creature you control dies, you gain 1 life. If that creature was an elemental, put a +1/+1 counter on this guy, on the Overgrowth Elemental. So all about elementals here.
This is really good because if you have any other elemental, this is 3 mana for 4/3 worth of stats right away.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm.
And gaining a life every time a creature dies, pretty solid ability. And if those creatures died were an elemental, this starts getting bigger. This is a legit elemental payoff. I think it's probably just a build around B. It's just very good in the elemental deck. You're also not paying that much of a cost. I would play this with like 3 or 4 other elementals, which is a lot of, I think, just random green decks.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that makes it better than a lot of the commons that look comparable, like the Netcaster Spider and the 3/3. So
certainly.
Yeah, I like Overgrowth Elemental at build around B. Next is Plummet. It is 1 and a green for an instant at common, destroy target creature with flying. Again, these type of cards will occasionally bump up against that maybe I main deck it in sealed type range, but for the most part, these are sideboard cards, and Plummet is going to get a sideboard grade here as well. Next is Pulse of Marasa. Oh, I like this one. Yeah, 2 and a green for an instant at uncommon. Return target creature or land card from a graveyard to its owner's hand. By the way, I love that. Like, that's an old school wording there. Even though you almost always do it for yourself, you can sometimes do some weird things with their graveyard. But anyway, you gain 6 life. This is now an uncommon. I think it deserves to be. It's actually really good. You get a card back at instant speed, and the 6 life is just a ton. Right, you talked about it earlier with we don't like it when the card just does it, but when it's tacked on, it's like, okay, I'll take it. 6 is a lot. Like that, you're starting to get into like, hello, like that's approaching worth the card itself territory. It's not there, but I mean, that is worth a lot more than it looks like at the surface. And then you're getting a creature back from your graveyard as well, so you're getting a card out of it.
I think that Pulse of Marasa is one of my favorite cards when it comes to like trying to stabilize as a control deck, because it lets you get your best creature back and gains you usually a combat step or more worth of life. Yeah, also, totally. This plus that 7 mana 3/3 that gets back 2 spells. Now we're talking.
Ooh, that's some business. Yeah. And of course, this, you mentioned if you can get back Gravedigger, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do. I like Pulse of Marasa a lot. It plays out a lot better than it looks on paper. That said, am I really going to give it a B-? I guess. I don't know. I really like it.
I think Pulse of Marasa is a C+. I don't think it's a B-.
Okay. All right. Let me off the hook. Thank you. C+ for Pulse of Marasa. What about Rabid Bite?
So 1 and a green for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So it's a straight up punch.
Yeah. What's funny? R&D calls this bite. They call it fights and bites. Yeah, this one's a bite. So this is the OG. Look, if you've got big enough creatures, this thing's just a straight up removal spell. The downside here is twofold. 1, it's sorcery speed, so you can be interacted with. And 2, it doesn't augment the creature itself. It doesn't give it +1/+1 tough power or whatever. So you need to have creatures that either have death touch or are big enough to eat up opposing creatures. And there's certain matchups where that's pretty easy, and there's some where it's less so. I still like Rabid Bite a lot, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's never bad. Like, for it to be bad, you have to be the weird green deck that has no creatures with power 3 or more.
Yeah. In which case, you would be unlikely.
I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, you made a mistake, especially in Corset. I don't think you could even do that. Rabid Bite to me is a C+. It's a go-to green removal spell, but it doesn't ever really blow you away. Do you agree? C+, Rabid Bite?
Yeah, I like C+ for Rabid Bite.
All right, what about Season of Growth? What does that one do?
So 1 and a green, it's an uncommon. Whenever it's an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. Huh.
It's rewarded me for combat tricks and auras.
And Rabid Bite.
Only one of those I'm actually happy to put in my deck for the most part.
It kind of makes all your creatures into heroic creatures. And
yeah.
Also gives you a scry 1 whenever you play a creature.
I don't think this is the reason for the season. I think
I think season, basically if I had like 5 cards that triggered the draw card part on this, I could in a creature heavy deck, I could see running it, but it's kind of awkward that this is a card that doesn't affect the board, doesn't pump a creature, doesn't kill a creature, in a deck that wants a lot of creatures and a lot of pump spells, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's hard to fit this in, but I think that Season of Growth, it's like a build around D. Like you're going to see some decks where it's going to be good, but it's really not a card that you're going to play very often.
That is exactly where I was going. Build around D. Next is Sedge Scorpion. He's back. Green for a 1/1 Death Touch at common.
We both claimed we'd give it a C, and I think it's still a C.
It is a C, yeah. But I want to say I like it. It's a C that I like. Next is Silverback Shaman. This is 3 green for a 5/4 Ape Shaman at common. It's got Trample, and when it dies, you draw a card. Wait, this is a common? What?
This is pushed.
How is this not an uncommon?
Well, I mean, I think that the way murder is a common, right? This is 5 mana for a 5/4 Trample. Already is like, all right, I'm kind of in for that. And then when it dies, you draw a card.
So it kills them unless they kill it, and then when they kill it, it pays you back. This is great.
Do you like it at B-?
Yes.
All right, I'm in for it.
Because you know what? If this wasn't uncommon, I would be like
despite your known monkey bias. All right.
I'm pro monkey though. Yeah. Thicket Crasher is next. Is 3 and a green for a 4/3 elemental rhino at common. It's got Trample, and it gives other elementals you control trample as well. So 4/3 Trampler for 4 with a little bit of upside here. Sure.
It's funny that you could have just written elementals you control have trample, but it's more understandable and more visually pleasing to also say this has trample.
Yeah, it is. It's funny.
That's just a quirk.
But
I like this card. 4 mana, 4/3 trample, already good. And then giving your other elementals trample really helps when you're doing the like elemental go wide, pump my whole squad team plan.
Yeah, for sure. I like it too. This just seems solid. This seems like a C. I don't think that giving other elementals trample is necessarily going to be so amazing. So I'm really basing it heavily off of how would I grade a 3/4 trampler for 4. And I do think that's a C. It might be a C plus if the elementals deck comes up all the time. Excuse me, 4/3. Yeah. So I give it a C. What do you want to go C plus?
I like C plus on Thicket Crasher.
Okay. A little bit of upside there. Thrashy B. This is my kind of card. Thrashing Brontodon, 1 green for a 3/4 dinosaur at uncommon. You can pay 1 and sacrifice it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Love it.
Yeah. Thrashing Brontodon is a B. No way around it.
It really is.
3 mana, 3/4 with a good ability.
Yeah. Also great artwork. One of my favorites. Just love everything about that card. Next is Veil of Summer. This is green for an instant and uncommon. Draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn. Spells you control can't be countered this turn. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and black until end of turn. So the idea here is they go Thoughtseize you and you go Veil of Summer, draw a card. You don't get to Thoughtseize me.
Thought Erasure, but yes.
Sure. Okay.
We're talking
you're saying it was built for that. I wasn't. I was talking about modern or anyway, whatever. I'm just kidding.
This is a podcast called Limited Resources. It's about limited.
And we're arguing about standard or modern.
Yeah. So Veil of Summer.
Go ahead.
It's a sideboard card. Like you're not going to
bring it in though. That's what I want to know. Are you going to bring it in ever?
Yes, for sure. Look, draw a card if an opponent has cast a blue or black spell this turn. If they're playing those colors and they just play a 3 mana 2/2 end of their turn, you just cast it and draw a card.
Okay, sure. That's your floor. Yeah, that makes sense.
This cycles very easily against blue or black decks. And then when they do try to murder one of your creatures or bounce one of your creatures, you just get to 2 for 1 them. So I think that I would it's a sideboard B. I'd always bring it in against blue or black. And then if they're a weird like blue-green deck with no targeted blue spells, then sure, this isn't good. But like most decks are going to have something. And against something like blue-black specifically, it's going to be awesome.
Okay, so very good sideboard card then, actually, at the end of the day. So where does it come into? Sideboard B?
Sideboard B.
All right. This next card is the Vorst. It's Vorst Claw. It's 4 green for a 7/7.
6 mana, 7/7.
It is an elemental, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's an elemental. This is fine. It's a little worse than Colossal Dreadmaw. I'd rather have Trample, but it is an elemental. I think on balance, it's like probably a C. Like, yeah, you're going to be fine playing this card.
Yeah, no, it is huge. And it is easy to underestimate power and toughness. And, we talked about Overcome, giving Tramp. This is the type of thing where you have a Vorskla and a couple of other things. And it's like, well, you're taking 19,
Yep.
So, sure. C for Vorskla. Wolfkin Bond. I'm out. Or am I? I can't remember this one. 4 and a green for an aura at common. It enchants a creature. Oh yeah, this one. When it enters a battlefield, you get a 2/2 wolf token, and the creature gets +2/+2. It's actually quite a bit.
It's 5 mana for 4/4 worth of stats, but you get to stack them where you want. So you can put the +2/+2 on like a flyer or lifelinker or trampler or what have you.
Right.
I still don't really like this card that much.
And remember the haste, the +2/+2 gets those abilities, if you will, so you can get a little bit of a bonus. It's still so risky though, because it doesn't have any insurance plan. If you go 4 and a green, target my thing, and they go murder it, it's just
or
you can't. Yeah, or you just can't win that game. I mean,
also, at best, you're still just getting 4/4 worth of stats for 5 mana, even with some, you get to fancy it up a little bit. So I think Wolfkin Bond's a D, but I could see a go wide deck wanting 1 or 2.
Wolf Rider's Saddle is the artifact that's part of this cycle. It's 3 and a green for an artifact equipment and uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2 green wolf token, and then you attach the saddle to it like the others. The creature gets +1/+1 and can't be blocked by more than one creature. Wow. So 4 mana for a 3/3 that can't be double blocked already in. The equip cost is significant. It's 3. But still, that's fair. This one might be one of the better ones too, because you're getting a 2/2.
It's great. You're paying 4 mana for a 3/3 with a good ability, and then it leaves behind a pretty threatening equipment. You put that on like a 4/4. All of a sudden, you have a 5/5 that they have to single block. That's pretty good.
That's really good. Yeah, and this reminds me of Living Weapon from way back in the day, but it's not. You can just move this off of it and still have the 2/2. So yeah, Wolf Rider Saddle's great. This is like at least a B, right?
I would give it a B-, I think.
Oh, I'm going B. Easy B right. This is great. Last green card is called Woodland Champion. 1 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Scout at uncommon. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, put that many +1/+1 counters on Woodland Champion. Look, the bottom line here is that we've got a 2 mana 2/2 with some very significant upside. You keep mentioning Raise the Alarm, which, by the way, that is very high on my list of commons at this point after having gone through all the colors. That's amazing. And then, but then there's also the
ferocious pup or whatever, the cub.
Yeah, the ferocious pup for sure. Yeah, it just and you're getting free rolled for the most part. Look, a 2/2 for 2 with no abilities honestly isn't really up to snuff these days. But this one does have an ability that's quite good, and I like Woodland Champion. I think this is a fine card in the green-white deck.
I think it's a C+. It reminds me a lot of a Johnny's Pride Mate.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good comparison. So Woodland Champion gets a C+. That's going to move us to Colorless and then the lands. The first Colorless is an artifact called Anvil Rot Raptor. It's 4 mana for a 2/1 flying bird with first strike at common.
Not a big
really
fan
understood
of this.
The first strike. Yeah, it's just doesn't pair well with evasion like this, and it's really understated for 4 mana, even if it is colorless. So I like Anvil Rot Raptor at a D. I figure like this is a type of card that you can put in as filler when you need to, but it is generally not the card you want.
Yeah, I agree with that.
One thing to note is that there are some decks that care about flying. The blue-white deck like actually rewards you for having creatures with the ability flying, and if you need to fill in those gaps, the Raptor might do that too. Next is called Colossus Hammer. That is a big hammer. It's 1 mana for an equipment at uncommon. Equipped creature gets +10/+10, and this is great. Loses flying because you're not flying with that hammer.
No, that thing's too big.
So the equip cost, right? This is what the thing we always look at. It's only 1 mana to put this thing on the battlefield. So the equip cost, what is it? 5, 6? No, it's 8. It's 8 mana to get this thing onto one of your creatures. Oh, it is heavy indeed.
I am not in for this, I don't think.
No way. Come on.
I think Colossus Hammer is an F. It
is an F. It's cute to
think. It's cute to think about, but I think it's just way too much.
Yeah, the flavor aspect makes perfect sense, but also the thing you want to do is put this on a flyer and be like, you're dead, and you can't even do that. So F for Colossus Hammer. Diamond Knight, blang, blang. 3 mana for a 1/1 knight at uncommon. It has vigilance. 3 mana for a 1/1 vigilance knight. So that sucks. But as Diamond Knight enters a battlefield, you choose a color. And whenever you cast a spell of the chosen color, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
So
it's
you need to cast. Once you've cast 3 spells, you're firmly ahead, but that takes probably 3 turns. I think if you have a deck that's like 2/3 one color, 1/3 the other color, I'd probably play this, but I wouldn't be super excited about it.
Really? I'm actually thinking I wouldn't. Like, what? Like Vigilance is my payoff?
Well, your payoff is a 4/4 or a 5/5.
Some point.
Yeah. But I mean, I could see it. I mean, imagine a black deck that has some soul salvages and you're like, play my cheap creature, soul salvage 2 creatures back, play them, and this is like a 6/6 or something.
Okay, sure. So to me, that is the upside is that it sits there and kind of doesn't do a whole lot for a few turns. And then in the late game, it can actually just get massive.
Yeah.
I do not like this card. Another thing I don't like about it is that if you do draw it in the late game, it's just pretty much awful.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Diamond Knight is D, but I think you can construct scenarios where you might play it.
All right. I like Diamond Knight at D as well. Diviner's Lockbox is 4 mana for an artifact, another uncommon. You can pay a mana and tap it and choose a card name, then reveal the top card of your library. If that card has the chosen name, you sacrifice Diviner's Lockbox and draw 3 cards. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. No.
Oh, this is an F. Like,
yeah, it's just
5 mana, draw 3 cards would already just be okay. You know, some decks would like it, some decks wouldn't. This is like 7 mana, 8 mana, do nothing. So
right, terrible.
Keep the lockbox out of your deck.
Yeah, keep it locked up. Heart Piercer Bow. This card's pretty good. 2 mana for an equipment at common. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, the bow does 1 damage to target creature defending player controls, and it only costs 1 mana to equip. The downside here is that it doesn't make your creature better, like at attacking.
It is very good.
I remember this being really annoying when it was last printed, though.
Yeah, it is very good against someone with a bunch of X1s. It's pretty bad otherwise. Note that it's like kind of old templating. The creature doesn't deal the damage, so putting this on a death touch creature unfortunately does not do what you want it to do.
Oh, I didn't recognize that either. Actually, this card's kind of not great. Maybe it's just sideboard against a bunch
I think it's
of
a sideboard C. It's just not a very good card.
Okay, sideboard C for Heart Piercer Bow. Manifold Key is 1 mana for an artifact and uncommon. It has 2 abilities. The first one is pay a mana and tap it to untap another target artifact. The other one is pay 3 mana and tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn.
So it's a strictly better Voltaic Key. So gotta upgrade your vintage decks. Basically, this is 3 tap to make a creature unblockable. That's just not good enough. I don't see a real reason to use this card. I would give it an F.
It is. It's just not worth a card. That's the problem. The effect matters, but maybe in sealed, maybe in slow, grindy games, you could bring it in. But yeah, otherwise it's really bad. Next is Marauder's Axe. This is kind of a classic at this point. It's 2 mana for an equipment at common. The equipped creature gets +2/+0. So that's pretty good. And the equip cost is reasonable at 2 mana. It's kind of right in the middle of everything.
Because this doesn't help your creature survive, it's good with first strikers and it's good with tokens. So I would expect to play Marauder's Axe a good amount of the time if I was in the tokens deck.
Yeah, Lifelink likes it too. It's just C, right?
It's like a C minus, I think.
C minus, sure. Yeah, it's not super great. Oh, Meteor Golem. Love this one. Glad they reprinted it. 7 mana for a 3/3 artifact creature golem at uncommon. And when it enters the battlefield, destroy target non-land permanent an opponent controls.
Yeah, the Meteor Golem is 7 is like the sweet spot to where you can actually cast this, and it has a very big impact on the game. So I would give Meteor Golem probably a B minus.
B minus for Meteor Golem. It's just so, again, difficult to die the turn you cast it. That's what you want out of your 7s. Pattern Matcher is next. It is 4 mana for a 3/3 artifact creature golem at uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a card with the same name as another creature you control, reveal it, and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library.
This is pretty cool.
You have to have it on the battlefield already and have another one in your library. That's the deal.
But basically, you can't search for multiple of these. It's unfortunately only others. But if you have doubles of any of your creatures that are in play, like this draws you an extra card, and it's a 4 mana 3/3. I think if I had I would need 3 creatures where I had doubles before I'd probably be happy playing this. But once I did, this card would be pretty good.
It is pretty good. I mean, it's limited in how ultimately powerful it can be because those are almost by definition going to be common. You're getting another common, but still, that's a card. It matters. Sure, I like Pattern Matcher. It's fine. Reasonable upside on a colorless card. I think it's like a C plus. I mean, it's still just a 3/3 for 4.
Yeah, I think it's a C plus.
Great. Prismite. Wow. Prismite did not get the hint when nobody played it in the last set. Is 2 mana for a 2/1 golem at common, and you can pay 2 mana to add 1 mana of any color.
Yeah, I don't like this card. I didn't like it in War, and I don't like it now. So
no,
I would give it a D just because it is a 2 mana 2/1. Can fix your mana. Yeah, you could play it, but it's not good.
But you shouldn't. D for Prismite. Next is Retributive Wand. Is that how you say that? 3 mana for an artifact at uncommon. You can pay 3 mana and tap it to have it deal 1 damage to any target. And when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to any target. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a way to sack it, I think it's kind of cool, but I don't think that most limited decks are actually going to do that.
Are you in for the 6 mana to do 1 damage?
No, I'm not
3
really.
Mana after that? Is that too slow?
It is too slow. I think Retributive Wand is probably enough.
Okay. Just too slow, huh? I'll go D on Retributive
3 and 3 is so much.
It is a lot. Salvager of Ruin is 3 mana for a 2/1 artifact creature construct. You can sacrifice it to choose target permanent card in your graveyard that was put there from the battlefield this turn and return it to your hand.
So it's a 3 mana 2/1 that kind of sits around, doesn't really get into combat because it's so weak. And then when your good things dies, you can pop this to get that thing back.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a sacrifice ability, so you can do it any point, whether it's tapped, whether it's not.
I think this is okay. If you have like decent creatures in your deck, this is an okay like placeholder to kind of save them. It's kind of a bad top deck though. Like,
yeah, it is.
If your good stuff's already died, I don't know. It doesn't really do much. You're not getting much of an advantage, right? Like
no, it's slow, it's clunky, it's on board.
At best, you're paying 3 mana to get a good thing back, probably a creature. Mm-hmm. So that sounds like
I actually don't like it.
Yeah, this seems like a D to me.
Right, because like the comparison would be a card like Regrowth, 1 and a green sorcery, return card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah,
this is like 3 mana, way more conditional. The card has to have gone there, so it needs to get on the battlefield that turn. If you draw it later, you can't just get something back. It's expensive. Yeah, I like D for Salvager of Ruin. Doesn't seem great. Next is Scuttlemutt. I remember you. 3 mana for uncommon. It didn't used to be an uncommon Scarecrow artifact creature. It's a 2/2. But you can tap to add 1 mana of any color, or you can tap to have target creature become the color or colors of your choice until end of turn.
I actually like.
I don't know how this fits in this set, but I like the ramp.
It's because there's color hosers. You have a pro-white creature, and you can make their creature white so that your creature can block it effectively or not be blocked by it.
Gosh, so we're playing that game. Okay. But mainly this thing is 3 mana 2/2 that taps to add 1 mana of any color. So it fixes and ramps you, right?
I think Scuttlemutt's a C. Most decks will be happy with their 3-drop ramping them.
Yeah. Also, these effects are always sneaky good. Next is Stone Golem. 5 mana for a common 4/4 creature, artifact creature golem.
This is an F. Like 5 mana 4/4, you can just do better than that.
Yeah, you just can. In current limited sets, you can just do better. Vial of Dragonfire is 2 mana for an artifact. This is one we talked about before. Common, you can pay 2 mana, tap and sack it to do 2 damage to a creature.
We went over this when we talked about the Renowned Artificer. Basically, Vial of Dragonfire is a D. The only real reason to put it in your deck is if you have the Artificer and you're kind of getting it for free.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry, Vial of Dragonfire. That's our last artifact. We've got a few lands and then we're done. So there's a cycle. We call these the gain lands. They enter the battlefield tapped. When they enter the battlefield, you gain a life, and then they tap for 2 colors of mana. So do we get all 10 here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it. So we get all 10 of these. So any color pair that your little heart desires, you could find it. These cards are good. They fix your mana. The life gain is relevant.
I will usually play 2 of these in a 2-color deck. So 2 of the red-black ones in a red-black deck. They do make the life gain theme a little bit better. And they also make it so splashing a 3rd color or even sometimes playing 3 colors is not that hard, especially with Evolving Wilds as a common as well. So these tend to fall in the C range, but like if you're red-blue, you should probably take the red-blue land over most C range playables because these sets all have so many playables, and having 2 lands that fix your mana plus 23 playables is better than just having 25 playables and you're not playing the last 2.
Exactly. You get to use those
but
picks.
they're a C, so...
Yeah. I assume that Scoured Barrens, the black-white one is going to be the best one because of the life gain aspect of the deck. It just gives you kind of
I think that's reasonable.
Yep. And then, so that leaves us with 2 lands. One of them is Cryptic Caves. This is an uncommon land that taps to add colorless mana. You can pay 1 mana, tap it, and sack it to draw a card, but only if you control 5 or more lands.
Which is fine, because that's
cool.
That's when you'd want to use this anyway. I would basically play Cryptic Caves in any deck that had good mana. So go back to that red-blue deck. You've got 2 Swiftwater Cliffs. I'm feeling pretty good about my ability to float a colorless land.
Yep, totally.
If you're playing,
just when you get late game or floody, you just...
If you're playing a white-blue deck that has white, blue costs and no duels, then I'm not playing Cryptic Caves. So another reason to take these duels highly is you get to do something like play Cryptic Caves, which I would give a C+ probably.
Yeah, I was going to give it lower. I mean, these colorless lands really do demand certain things, and if you like you said, like good mana, and if you don't have it, you just can never play them. Yeah. I'll say C- on Cryptic Caves. Last card is Evolving Wilds. You just mentioned it. Land, tap it, sack it, search your library for a basic land card, put it on the battlefield tapped. So it can get any basics you have. It's
basically the same as the 2 color lands, because early in the draft, you don't know what colors are going to be. This is a little more flexible, slightly worse once you know if you're in a 2 color pair, but also gets a little better once you're 3 colors. So I would say Evolving Wilds is a C. But
I agree. And if I was only 2 colors, I would much prefer the tap land that gains you the life. Like the life gains just better, So yeah. All right. That will do it for the M20 commons and uncommon set review. You said it coming in, and I agree with you. This set has a lot going on. Yeah, it's a core set. There's some pretty, there's some vanilla creatures in here and some pretty basic stuff. It's not quite War of the Spark or, God forbid, Modern Horizons, but they put some wrinkles in. They pushed some cards, and they gave us a few curveballs with the like murder and stuff like that, and a couple of push commons. So yeah, I'm into it. Like I said, it's like it can be a bit of a palate cleanser. That's going to do it for this one. If you want to find more information about the show, lrcast.com has links and everything that Luis and I do. You can find us on social media. I'm Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV. Got to thank our sponsor, channelfireball.com. Look, if you want to get a box of M20, there's 2 things you need to know. 1, you can go to channelfireball.com to get it. You can pre-order it, depending on when you're listening to the show, or you can order it if it's already out. And 2, if you need to scrap together some bucks for it, you can sell some cards back to them. And there's this really neat thing you can do. You can get 30% if you want to trade your cards in for store credit that you can use on a box of M20 or Modern Horizons or whatever it is that you want. You can go on the site, check out their prices. They'll show you exactly what they're going to give you. And you can choose between getting cash or that 30% bonus on store credit trade-in. You send your cards into them, they grade them, they do it nice and quick, and they let you know, all right, you got your store credit, and then boom, you can spend it on the site on whatever you want on Channel Fireball. That is a great deal, and it's a nice way to sort of get that box so that you can draft with your friends, And then, as we mentioned before, check out channelfireball.com/newsletter to sign up for 1, 2, or even all 3 of the sweet newsletters that come out every week from CFB. That will do it for this one. Thank you so much for hanging out. Next show will be the rare and mythic rare M20 set review. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you then.
So there has been an end of an era recently, and we were talking about this a little before the show. Pro points are gone. The last event that awards pro points, professional points, what you got from playing at Grand Prix and Pro Tours, was Grand Prix Seattle. So we've kind of got a lifetime list of pro points. I ended up finishing 10th of all time, tied with Gabriel Nassif, which is kind of funny because we're often compared, both at 600.
Exactly tied, huh?
Exactly tied, both at exactly 600. Number 1,
funny.
Shuhei Nakamura was 776. So, I mean, this list is a pretty accurate representation of who like the most dominant Magic players were of all time. It's not the best stat if you wanted to figure out who the best was, I don't think. And I'm not just saying that because I'm not number 1. I don't believe I'm the best either. It's, it's more of a skill times dedication stat, right? Where, like I have the top 20 here in front of me, from, Shuhei, Levy, Finkel, Paulo, Martin, Yuya Watanabe, Owen, Tomohiro Saito, Shota, these are like the top 10 coming into me in the Nassif. Like Kai's in 13th, Ben Stark's in 12th. Like these, they're all legendary Magic players, but the difference between the top 5 and the top 20 or whatever is largely determined by how many tournaments you went to. So I don't think you can get high up on this list without being quite skilled, because you do need to have some really good high finishes. But it also is, Shuhai and Martin went to more Grand Prix than anyone else. And
sure.
And that pushes them up the list some, though they're both obviously in the Hall of Fame, extremely accomplished Magic players. So it's an interesting stat. Part of the reason we're talking about it is because it's not going to change anymore, right? Like, you can talk about how many Mythic Championship or Pro Tour top 8 someone has. I guess Kai just added another one, but Pro Points isn't going to change. And I have mixed feelings about that. Like, I'm all for trying new systems. I want Magic's future to be as bright as possible. I mean, it still kind of makes me sad these are frozen in time. This was such a classic benchmark and something that we used to earn at all, as many tournaments as we could go to. And
yeah,
it's it makes me feel good where I finished. I'm not unhappy about that, but
yeah, congrats. That's a
601 would have been a little better, but I didn't have it in me to chase that at the last Grand Prix. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I'm sure many of our listeners don't care at all about pro play, and that's 100% fine. For those that do, I think it's a kind of interesting walk through a memory lane of where everyone ended up. And, also I look at this list and I know all, the top 20, I know all 20 people, right? It's going to be hard to get on this list without me knowing them because of how long I've been involved in the community. It's interesting just thinking about that.